A deep dive look at the new Trek Rail 2022 and the major question out there, riders: should you be splashing the cash buying the new rail or save some cash and buying the old rail, because they're not that different? Riders, welcome back to Sam's Bikes, where you know we only talk e-bikes, and today we're going to do a deep dive into the new Trek Rail 2022 and what are the major differences between the old frame and the new frame and which is better for you to buy. And riders, I'm going to ask you for a favor very quickly. Hit that like button at the bottom of this video. It really helps out with the algorithms. And if you feel like it, subscribe to the channel. It really means a lot. And before we jump into the video, a massive shout out to Schwarby, making the best electric mountain bike tires in the business, and Insta360, the new sponsor at Sam's Bikes. I've been using the Instago 2 for the last like 2.5 months. I love this camera. It's a very small 26-gram camera, and you can mount it all over your bike. I'm loving it. And next week, I'm gonna do a video on all the different angles you can get with this epic camera. And with the electric mountain bike market going crazy in 2022, why not head over to samsbikes.net? The best, the first, the original e-bike finder on the internet. I definitely think it's the best way for you to find your next e-bike. Try it out, riders, and let me know if you like it. Okay, riders, now onto the new Trek Rail. And this release really took me by surprise. I was lucky enough to test the Trek Rail about 4 or 5 months ago. It is a fantastic e-bike. Link in the show notes if you want to see that review. And I really didn't think we were going to see a re-release of this bike because it is kind of similar. I was hoping we were going to see more an E-slash, like 170, 180, sort of super enduro bike, very similar to the Specialized Kenevo or the Santa Cruz Bullet, because Trek really don't have that in the lineup. But what I'm going to tell you next shows me that we are having a battery war in the e-bike market in 2022. Specialized started the trend a couple of years ago with the 700. Now we've got Scott with a 750, we've got Giant with a 750, Mondraker with a 750, and now Trek with a 750. So definitely the bike industry thinks that bigger battery is helping sell these e-bikes. So this is what we know about the new Trek Rail. It has a 750 watt battery. It only will be available in the top models starting from 9,099 euros. So make sure, riders, you understand that. The lower models will still have the 625 watt battery. It still has the same 160, 150 millimeters of travel, but the frame has been beefed up to make it stiffer. So let's have a closer look at all these changes and see if it's worth spending the extra cash for that top model Trek Rail. So obviously the biggest change for the Trek Rail is a 750 watt battery. So that is 20% more than the original 625. And what does that mean in the real world? Well, I always talk in vertical meters climbed. I reckon you're gonna get around 300 to 350 more vertical meters of climbing. I have done a fair bit of range testing on the Bosch, Bros, and Shimano, and I actually found the Bosch the most efficient out of battery use out of the lot. So putting a 750 in the Bosch system, you're gonna get an epic amount of range out of this bike. And the new Bosch Smart System, okay, it looks prettier. We've got new remotes, we've got a new app, but really it's not that different. You can't do too much with the app. I haven't used it yet, but hopefully that's gonna happen in the new year. But if we look at something like Mission Control from Specialized, I still think they are leading the game in this. And now to the geometry change, and for me, this is the biggest one. And I think Trek might have made some sacrifices to fit this 750 watt battery in. Let's look at the geo charts back to back and see how they differ. Okay, so with the new geometry, we have a seat tube angle of 77.1 compared to 75. So that is going to give you a more aggressive seat angle, so it is going to be a better climber. So that's a win. Head tube angle 64.9 versus 64.6. Okay, so that's a little bit more aggressive, but I'm going to say probably most riders won't be able to pick that 0.5 of a change. And the change day 447 for the new Trek rail and the old Trek rail. This is great to see they haven't made this any longer because this is a relatively short change day for a 29er. And now this is where it gets interesting. Reach 470 to 491. That is 21 mil increase in length. And I dare say it's to fit in that 750 watt battery. Now let me try and explain what that's going to do. This is a trail bike. So a trail bike for me, I'm 183 centimeters. I like a trail bike to be around 460 to 475, 480 at the longest. A trail bike should be shorter in wheelbase, so shorter in chainstay and reach, which equates to wheelbase, because it's going to make the bike feel more agile coming in and out of corners. Granted, a longer bike is going to feel more stable. More like if I was looking for an enduro bike or a downhill bike, my reach numbers probably would be around 475 to 485, 490 maybe, but that's really long. So you're going to really sacrifice this bike in a large is going to be really good in a straight line and really good at railing corners. But when you come into tight switchbacks, like maybe someone like Finale Laguda, you're going to find this bike really hard to muscle around. And then if we look to the medium, which I think is like 455, I'm going to be right in between sizes. So I'm going to say I'm not digging the new sizing of the Trek rail. And lucky last, Mullet Ready. And this one kind of confuses me because the old Trek rail was Mullet Ready. I've seen lots of people ride it as a mullet. So I kind of think this might be just marketing jargon. Overall, the big story for the new Trek rail is that geo changes and extended reach. Why did Trek change those geos so much? The Trek rail, the old one, was a fantastic trail bike. Well, riders, we're going to go and look at the frame. Obviously, they've extended the reach numbers just to fit in that battery. And I kind of think that if you look at the numbers, for me, the old rail has better geometry numbers as a trail bike for me. Okay, so now we know the differences between the new and old Trek rail. Which model should you be buying? First off, I think you should be looking at the geometry and the sizing of the Trek rail between the new and the old and see which one fits you better because they are quite different. And secondly, if you're looking for a range monster, you're looking to get the most amount of Ks out of your e-bike, definitely go for the 750 because you're going to get 20% more range. Now let's look at a top spec model, a mid and an entry level, which I think are the best models in the lineup. Okay, out of the 5 new Trek rails with the new frame and new battery on offer, I would go for the 9.8 XT. It comes with Zeb Select Plus, which are very similar to Zeb Ultimas, XT running gear, and including the famous 4-pot XT brakes from Shimano. If you're into wireless gears and wireless droppers, maybe go up to the next models. But for me, it's another thing I need to charge, and I have forgotten to charge them quite a few times. They do work very well, but for someone that's a bit lazy like me, I would just go with cables. And I'm not really a fan of this new Tire Whiz and Air Whiz. I don't really understand it. Like if it was a Shock Whiz, which actually gives you calculations on your suspension, I would say definitely, or some type of automatic calculator, like the new Fox Live Valve or Flight Attendant, I would definitely get that. But this just gives you your air pressures of your tires and your air pressures of your suspension. And for me, I always check my tires before I go for a ride anyway, because with tubeless, they always leak a little bit. And my suspension pressure doesn't change unless I have a major problem. So I kind of see that a bit of marketing jargon. I wouldn't spend the extra money for that. And for the mid-spec, I'd go the Rail 9 GX, which is the old frame. It's in aluminium. It's got great suspension and great parts on it. And I think it would be a great bike for someone that just doesn't want to upgrade anything. And the budget model, and actually the model I would pick, I would definitely be picking the old frame because I think the geometry suits my style of riding better with that shorter reach as a trail bike. And I would be going the Rail 5 with the 625 watt battery, great geometry, very reasonable price for what you're getting, and it's a very upgradable bike. This bike is going to be perfect for a beginner or a novice, but also you can grow with that bike. I would probably first off change the suspension and brakes and tires. So it would probably cost you maybe 2.5 grand to get that bike in a really good position to ride it hard. And riders, that's it for me this week. I hope you enjoyed the deep dive of the Trek Rail. And if you have not subscribed to the channel, please do so. Share it with like-minded people. It really does mean a lot. And stay safe out there. And I'm going to see you next week.